Venezuela's government reveals heaps of new evidence which points to corruption within opposition ranks. Antigua and Barbuda and Russia sign an agreement to remove travel restrictions. And Mexico's government says that 791 who were rescued over the weekend will come with a cost for the human trafficking business. Hello and welcome to Telesur English. I am Stefania Bravo. This is from the South. Venezuela's Minister of Communication, Jorge Rodriguez, held a news conference a short time ago, releasing damning new evidence regarding corruption by the Venezuelan opposition. Rodriguez demonstrated a screenshot of WhatsApp messages between Juan Guaido and other opposition figures, implicating them in a series of acts of corruption. The minister said that the situation has become so grave that even the media, which is typically pitted against the government, has recognized the criminal activity. This includes the financing of destabilization attempts from Colombia. The government says that the intention was never to provide humanitarian aid.
¿Dónde está el dinero de la ayuda humanitaria?
Where are the $3 million of the Venezuela aid concert? Where are they? A tweet was published about that. Juan Guaido directly pocketed that money. There's a lot of evidence in which Juan Guaido personally asked for that money, those $3 million. Remember, they were going to bring together $150 million. That multimillionaire English imbecile. But in the end, it was just $3 million. And they left all those workers who helped them with the stage and the sound, etc. They were never paid because they didn't use those $3 million to pay the people. A right-wing extremist says here, confirmed, the payment of the 2020 bonuses constitutes the first mega guiso corruption of Guaido's administration. This was said by the terrorist Robert Alonso. Calderón Berti, go and look for the blank check that you left at the hotel in Cúcuta. Go and look for it because it's a crime to issue a blank check. We have here what was posted on the Pan Am Post Spanish website with all of the forged and inflated invoices.
Cuba's foreign minister is continuing his official tour around the Caribbean, which began a week ago. The top diplomat took to Twitter to post about his cordial meeting with the Governor General of Barbados, Dame Sandra Mason. Earlier in the day, Rodriguez visited the Monument to the Martyrs, which faces the waters where Cubana Air Flight 455 was downed in 1976. There, he and Barbadian officials paid tribute to the victims of the terrorist attack, which claimed the lives of 73 innocent people. There is a call for a unified Caricom stance on Venezuela as heads of government of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, are meeting in Antigua and Barbuda. Outgoing OECS Chairman Dr. Ralph Gonsalves made the appeal at the opening ceremony.
Otherwise, we are going to have a situation in which we are unequally yoked, which is really the situation in Caricom. And an integration movement in which we are unequally yoked will not long survive. In Caricom, we have important work which we are doing in functional cooperation, important work in security, foreign policy coordination, though the chaos between us over Venezuela is something which we have to sort out.
St. Lucia's Prime Minister Alan Chesney says climate change is high on the agenda for the OECS, noting that islands in the Caribbean are unable to face the global phenomenon alone.
Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, this problem is not going to be resolved the way we would like it to be, which is that we would not have a climate warming taking place to this extent, because unfortunately for us, as was expressed by my colleague from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there is irreversible harm that has already taken place. And so there are things that have already been lost that cannot be regained. And what we are talking about now is really survival of our society. But we ourselves have had to learn to be able to adapt in moving forward. I thought it was eloquently put by the member from St. Vincent and the Grenadines that climate warming has no prejudice. Rich, poor, big, small, black, white, Indian, it makes no difference. That this is really an issue in which we cannot fight through traditional mechanisms, that this is something that we're going to have to fight ourselves, and it's going to require us to take a lead in the region.
Meanwhile, St. Lucia's Prime Minister says that OECS as a bloc has to be more proactive in addressing the European Union's blacklisting of several Caribbean countries. He said this must manifest at the UN Security Council, as voting should be unanimous for Caribbean voices to be heard.
We are not expressing our egregiousness towards what is taking place against us sufficiently. And the only way that small countries like ours can express our voice is at the UN, and is how we vote at the UN. And there are times when collectively that we must vote a particular way, not for the motion that is on the table, but sometimes to make a point.
Light boy. It's confirmed the 4th University of the West Indies campus has been finally approved for Antigua and Barbuda. Prime Minister Gaston Brown made the announcement, saying he expects to receive the official communication by Tuesday. This as the country moves to have the campus opened in September with at least 1,000 students. Brown says reservations about the campus expressed by 3 countries have been lifted. He had been in discussions with the UE Vice Chancellor Sir Hilary Beckles on the issue. Meanwhile, Antigua and Barbuda has signed a visa waiver agreement with Russia to remove travel restrictions between the 2 countries. Prime Minister Gaston Brown and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov signed the agreement during Brown's recent visit to Russia. Antigua and Barbuda has had 30 years of diplomatic relations with the Russian Federation. The island's nation is now looking at increasing the number of countries not requiring visas. Talks are underway in Haiti between President Jovenel Moïse and representatives from various sectors in an effort to find a solution to the ongoing political crisis in the nation. These discussions are expected to pave the way for a national dialogue. Representatives of trade unions, as well as persons from religious, academic, and civil society sectors are attending the meeting. However, some organizations, such as the Haitian People's Sector, declined the president's invitation, noting that key opposition members were left out of the talks. On Saturday, the Caribbean community Caricom called on all political stakeholders in Haiti to act responsibly following deadly protests aimed at forcing President Moïse out of office. Guyana has received $18 million in aid to help set up a number of mega solar farms. This is part of a $250 million deal Guyana signed with Norway in 2009 to preserve the South American nation's Amazon rainforest. The money will be used to provide at least 30 megawatts of solar power, which already generates electricity for dozens of indigenous communities in Guyana. Guyana is trying to reduce its dependence on fossil fuels, although it will likely become an oil producer by 2020, following recent discoveries of large quantities of oil and gas.
I'm quite pleased to say that the UAE funding has been approved, and then with that funding we are seeking to make Wakenham one of the first totally green off-grid centers. That will be a hybrid system.
St. Kitts and Nevis's Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris has held bilateral talks with his Jamaican counterpart Andrew Holmes. The 2 Caribbean leaders also addressed a number of matters of regional importance. The brief discussions were held while Prime Minister Harris was on an official visit to Jamaica. Dr. Harris also signed a condolence book in honor of former Prime Minister Edward Seaga, who will be laid to rest on June 23rd. Coming up after the break, Mexico's Foreign Ministry speaks on the 791 people it says were rescued for human trafficking on Saturday. Stay with us. Welcome back. Mexican authorities detained 791 migrants on Saturday in the state of Veracruz. The migrants were found inside 4 parked trucks in what was one of the largest raids against illegal immigration in recent months. The mass detention comes less than 10 days after Mexico started to set up its efforts to curb illegal immigration in its territory. According to a controversial agreement signed on June 7th with the U.S., Mexico had 45 days to make palpable progress in reducing the number of people seeking to enter the U.S. after fleeing poverty and violence in their home countries. Our correspondent Eduardo Marin has more.
Today, Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard explained the situation of those people rescued last weekend. 791 people were rescued out of 4 trailers headed to the state of Veracruz. The government decided to rescue these people because, according to them, they were being transferred in an inhumane and inadequate way. Today, the foreign minister said that the rescue of these people will cost the human trafficking business close to $69 million. Let's recall that the human trafficking industry is worth more than $6 billion every year.
And now to Guatemala, where with over 90% of votes counted, it seems the country is heading to a runoff presidential vote. Former First Lady Sandra Torres took the lead with 24% of the vote, followed by 4-time candidate Alejandro Yamatei with 15%. Because no candidate secured more than 50%, a second round between the top 2 finishers is necessary. The runoff is expected to take place on August 11th. Sunday's elections were marked by absenteeism as rates surpassed 40% of eligible voters. Close to 8 million people took part in the polls, contested by 19 candidates.
We are in the lead thanks to a political project that we've been building for years. It didn't happen overnight. You can't improvise a political project. That is why today we have this result. Look at the state, the country. Look at the results this government has had after simply improvising. Guatemala isn't up for more political misadventures.
But election day did not go by without issues, as the Supreme Electoral Court suspended elections in the municipality of San Jorge and the department of Zacapa due to security concerns. The Interior Minister announced that the electoral board in the municipality walked off their post after receiving death threats. In Argentina, authorities have reportedly managed to restore power following a massive outage that left tens of millions in Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay without electricity. Power has also returned to Uruguay as well as to people in neighboring Paraguay. The exact cause behind the failure in the country's power grid remains unknown, but Argentine officials say the failure originated at a transmission point between the power stations in the country's northeast. In El Salvador, environmental activists have condemned the effects of agrotoxins used by the sugar industry. Residents of rural areas have been exposed to weed killers, and thousands are suffering from chronic kidney disease.
Rosalia Lopez has lived near sugarcane plantations all her life. Her family's form of sustenance has been the agricultural work that the sugarcane industry offers locals. The use of poison in crops caused 2 of her children to suffer from chronic kidney disease, while another passed away due to kidney failure.
They
came drenched in that poison that they used to spray. So I said to them, "Why are you like this all wet?" They used to tell me that it was the poison and that they came here to wash it off.
Oscar is one of Rosalia's sons. He has been on dialysis for 4 years. He tells us how he acquired chronic kidney disease after working 12 years fumigating the fields.
I felt a great pain in my body. I would feel tired while I was fumigating and couldn't stand doing the work anymore. So they took me to the health facility and they did tests, and I found out my kidneys were damaged.
Environmental movements promote agroecology as a working alternative for inhabitants of rural communities to develop healthy food markets and workshops for the use of native seeds, which contribute to the protection of the environment.
We continue using fossil fuels, generating greenhouse gases. We continue to use a large amount of poison that go in our food and then end up damaging our kidneys, among other things. We continue destroying forests, building great infrastructure. Humanity is not going to be able to continue going like this.
Imports of insecticides, herbicides, and fungicides into the country surpasses 175,000 tons a year, which leaves transnational corporations with millions in profits at the cost of the lives and health of small farmers.
Coming up after the break, we talk COP25. Let's take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. Chile is preparing to host the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP25, from December 2nd to 13th. The summit will bring together representatives from more than 195 countries, while over 20,000 participants are expected to attend. The meeting is a core negotiation process for advancing the Paris Agreement and the pre-2020 climate action agenda. Chile is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change in Latin America, with frequent natural disasters. However, the environmental and social impacts of Chile's mining sector are likely to come under scrutiny. Chile has yet to sign the Escazú Agreement to protect the rights of environmental defenders. The pre-COP25 session will be held in Costa Rica from October 8th to 10th. We are joined live in studio by Yvonne Yanis. She's a founding member of Acción Ecológica and Oil Watch. Her research has centered on climate change, and she's worked alongside local communities in Ecuador's Amazon in their struggles against ever-expanding oil exploration. Welcome, Yvonne. Thank you so much for your time for Telesur English. So let's dive right in. Time is running out on climate change. We are seeing some of the worst effects of climate change on the planet. In your opinion, what more do you think needs to be done?
Well, I think that we have to start to do something radical regarding climate change, because after 24 meetings of COPs and negotiations, international negotiations on climate change, I think that almost nothing has been done. In fact, I think that many things get the problem worse than before. Mm-hmm. So I think that we have to start to leave fossil fuels underground, and we can start with some special cases, like for example the Yasuni case, that is a very special and very common and very well known internationally. And not only to leave fossil fuels on the ground, but I think that we have to start to shift the food production, for example, to make more efforts to support the local communities, the campesinos, the peasants, and also to respect the indigenous people's rights that live and protect the forests. So there are several ways to fight climate change, but we have to be serious and to really start to have and to take in our hands the best solutions for the problem, and not to continue with the false solutions that have been decided in the COPs until now.
Yeah. Yvonne, would you say public policies in Latin America are focused on immediate and direct action?
No. I really think that the governments are not taking the problem seriously. Any government, or maybe with some exceptions, like for example in Costa Rica some years ago, the president on that moment decided to declare Costa Rica as a fossil fuel free country. Yeah. But I think that besides these cases, I think that the governments are not taking really neither immediate or long-term measures to fight climate change. But I think that in the state level, this is happening. But I think that in regions, in local communities, in provinces, probably there are governments of these spaces, territorial spaces, that are already taking probably more and important decisions regarding climate change than the state level. For example, I would like to mention what is happening now in the province of Azuay. Where in Ecuador, where a new president of the province, let's say it in English, el prefecto de Azuay, that is Yacu Pérez. he's really taking measures to, for example, support the agroecology, to support the use of bicycles, to fight the expansion of mining activities that are also, of course, one of the main causes of climate change. So I think that in the, let's say, provinces, regions, local communities, the decisions are being taken in a good way, but not necessarily in the level of the governments of, you know, the states.
Yeah. Yvonne, what role does civil society play in influencing the government's decisions that we were just talking about?
What do you mean exactly?
What can the society do to influence the government?
Well, the civil society is a very wide concept, no? So if I can say, for example, if we can put in the civil society sector all the indigenous organizations, for example, of course, they are taking the decisions in their hands, they are resisting the expansion of oil activities, they are protecting the forests. So but also other networks, for example, that work like Oil Watch, for example, that is also part of the civil society, for example. Oil Watch is also proposing the idea to take steps leaving fossil fuels on the ground and organizing themselves in Africa, Asia, and America Latina, but also other organizations like, for example, Acción Ecológica. No, we are just trying to put pressure to the governments that they need to take immediately decisions that really address the problem, because you know, sometimes they think that we have all the time in the future, and no, we have to take the decisions now, because climate change is already causing impacts, and even we start now to leave fossil fuels on the ground, the problems probably will continue for decades. So we have to start now.
Yeah. Now, Yvonne, traditional territories of indigenous peoples are also where most oil is found, drilled and exploited. Do you believe the government is doing enough to stop this from happening in indigenous communities?
The government, in the case of Ecuador?
Of Ecuador, yes.
No, I think that no, it's contrary to that. The oil expansion is more and more, and of course over not only the indigenous territories, but also the protected areas. And not only the problem is oil, but I think that also the mining expansion over forest areas, for example, is very is critical. And we know that deforestation is one of the main causes also of climate change. So I think that, but not only this government, we have to say that the former government too. In fact, the government of Correa was the one that canceled the Yasuni proposal, the Yasuni initiative, that was probably the most brave proposal that has been presented in climate change negotiations. But of course, this government is going in a worst way, in a worst path, and he is like decided to exploit until the last drop of oil. And I think that this is not only a problem because of climate change. This is a problem because the indigenous people's rights are being threatened. This is a problem because the pollution in the Amazon, in the rivers, is very critical. And I think that Ecuador is the country that recognizes nature as a subject with rights. So I think that all of these activities are not only violating nature rights, human rights, but of course is causing this, is contributing to climate change that is a global problem that will affect the humanity in the whole.
In the future.
In the future, of course.
Yvonne Llanes, thank you so much for your time for Telesur English. We have been speaking with Yvonne Llanes. She's a founding member of Acción Ecológica and Oil Watch. Let's go to other news now. And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.